Twist.io.
Well, hello there. The lights are on bright. It is time to dance. Welcome to the show you live for. It is ginormous. Now, it is early on a December 9th, 2025. It is 12:55 a.m. As I have stated previously, I work night shifts now, and this is right around the time where I'm able to do ginormous episodes, especially if it's a topic I don't want to be too late on, if you will. So this is something, and this is one of those topics that I really wanted to get to. Obviously, it is the reacting to the college football playoffs final ranking, kind of what the bracket will be, what some of the games are that I am looking forward to, and just talking about overall how I feel about it. You've heard a million different takes, as kind of how it is with anything in college football when it comes to rankings, especially now with the 12-team playoff format. A lot more teams feel as though they have the bids in and they have earned the right to be in. So, without further ado, let's get into it. So, I will read off to you, for those who have not heard, who have not seen, I will read off to you what the rankings are 1 through 12, and this is what the College Football Committee came to a conclusion to as to what will be the 12 most deserving teams, and all of these teams will be participating in the playoff bracket. Number 1, Indiana. Number 2, Ohio State. Number 3, Georgia. Number 4, Texas Tech. Number 5, Oregon. Number 6, Ole Miss. Number 7, Texas A&M. Number 8, Oklahoma. Number 9, Alabama. Number 10, Miami. 11, Tulane. And 12, James Madison University. So, right off the bat, a couple of controversies that have been going on are the 11 and 12 seeds. First of all, I would just like to say that to those people who are trying to dismiss Tulane and say that they should not be in it because of the conference that they're in, the whole point of having a 12-team playoffs was so some underrepresented teams, leagues, conferences have a chance to be represented on the grand national stage. Now, a lot of people would argue, and a lot of people do argue, that you can consider that a waste because, hey, they're not necessarily really going to win unless there's some huge sort of upset. It's really kind of a foregone conclusion that the team from the non-Power 5 conference is not going to win those games. But what I will tell you at the end of the day is if you want representation throughout all of college football, I think the rule, and I'm going to be fair to the committee on this rule, I'm not going to be very fair later on in the video, so I guess I'll get the positivity in while I can. I think the rule of having the championship or the championship winner with the best non-Power 5 conference team gets an automatic bid into the playoffs. I think that's a really great rule. I think it really gives these teams who are lower level, who in the 14 playoffs never would have gotten consideration for being in the college football playoffs. I think it really gives them something to fight for. I think it makes them motivated to want to pursue their dreams and something higher. And I think overall, yes, in theory, it does create parity. I know that I'd say 9.9 times out of 10, the upsets, especially at this point of the season when we're talking about the best of the best teams in college football, I don't think those upsets are necessarily going to happen. But it also does offer the chance for some more parity in your college football season, which I think makes the teams more exciting and makes the playoff bracket more exciting in general. What do we love about March Madness, college basketball? The upsets that can happen. And obviously this is to a much lesser extent because there's 12 teams and not, over 100 teams. But I think you kind of catch my drift and see what I'm trying to get at here. So, Tulane, JMU, I'm not going to really give them a snowball's chance. I mean, it could be interesting with Tulane versus Ole Miss. Ole Miss obviously does not have a lot of their stuff figured out right now. They're entering uncharted territory in the worst possible time of the year to enter uncharted territory. So I was going to say if there is going to be an upset, maybe you look at that. We'll see what happens there, but I do anticipate that the talent for Ole Miss, they are number 6 in the country for a reason, and we're ranked a little bit higher than that at one point. So I do think that the talent of Ole Miss will outshine Tulane, but I would not rule anything out. Like I said, we do not know how the operation with Ole Miss, and we'll be finding it out the same time that they do how it translates, onto the field. So right then and there, I think that that is something that could be very interesting. A couple of things that I want to get into when it comes to the rankings here. You see Alabama at number 9, and they have not changed. They have not moved. They lost, and they got spanked, to be quite frank with you, in the SEC championship game against Georgia. They have not moved since we last talked on Thursday when we had episode number 21, and we were talking about the rankings there, reacting to the final rankings before the final decisions. Alabama was 9 then. Alabama is 9 now. And what I'm going to say is, why are we not moving the goalposts for Alabama? Is it just because they're in the SEC? Is it just because the committee favors them and they believe that Alabama is going to be able to give a better fight to these teams and create more enthralling stories or more enthralling games? Do they really believe that? Because I happen to disagree. You had BYU in the mix that was ranked at number 11, and the reason why they got booted out is because they lost to Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship game. And guess what? So we're going to tell BYU that the conference championship game matters for them, and that was going to be make or break when both of their losses was to the number 4 team in the country, to Texas Tech. Any team that they faced this year that was not Texas Tech, BYU was victorious. Now I understand you're not really able to get over that hump, get over that hill, so I can kind of understand why one would be hesitant maybe to put BYU in. But you mean to tell me, and I mean no disrespect, but you mean to tell me that BYU not being in because of them losing their conference championship game, and Alabama not even moving to 10, 11, or 12 despite them having 3 losses on the year? You're telling me that's not moving the goalposts, and just because one's in the SEC and just because one's in the Big 12? I think that's nuts. I think that's ludicrous, and I think that you are showing heavy favoritism towards Alabama, and I get it. They have their rich history, but Nick Saban is not there anymore, and there is a noticeable difference. Even though, yes, they finally have made the playoffs, there is a noticeable difference between how Alabama played under Nick Saban and how they play under Kalen DeBoer. And under Kalen DeBoer, it's a lot softer and not on brand with what we are used to seeing from an Alabama football team. And I just think it doesn't get any simpler than that. Again, I'll reiterate, you tell me Alabama loses their conference championship game, they go to 9-3. By my knowledge, I believe this is going to be the first 3-loss college football playoff team that we have, and go figure, it'll be Alabama, right? They're in the SEC, I get it. But why does Vanderbilt not get this spot? Why does Vanderbilt not go in? They're in the same conference. Yes, Alabama does hold the head-to-head victory over Vanderbilt. I understand that. But in my opinion, your general record should go ahead of a head-to-head battle. Now, if both teams at the time were whatever, like 9-2, and they were, yes, but they ended up losing. Now they're 9-3 when it came down to final selection time. Then hey, Vanderbilt should have been in. BYU should have been in. And sticking in the SEC, to all the people kind of switching gears here, to all the people who are saying that Texas got snubbed, I could not disagree more. I believe that Texas, and I want to remain consistent because I said that Steve Sarkisian, I admired the way that he went to the press and that he fought for his team, and I admire that, and I think that any coach should fight for their team, and each coach, when you're kind of on that cusp, should want to obviously vouch for their team. That's something that they should do, but that doesn't mean that they deserve it. Now, Texas obviously is 9-3. If they also would have been the 9-3 team, and I am strongly against that. But the people who are firmly in the corner of Texas and Steve Sarkisian saying that they got robbed, I could not disagree more. I mean, you lose to Florida, you lose to Georgia, and yeah, obviously you have these games that are like you win, you have an impressive victory in the Red River. But guess what? John Mateer was hobbled in that game and not playing. Okay, you beat Texas A&M. That is a very impressive victory. Okay, it kind of puts things into perspective and puts things into question, seeing if Texas A&M is as legitimate of a contender as they say they are. They'll have that opportunity to prove it against Miami, which I think is going to be a very interesting game. Top ACC team versus top Texas, one of the top SEC teams. I think that's going to be very interesting. I'm really looking forward to that game. But again, you win in overtime to Kentucky and to Mississippi State if you're Texas. And those right there, two teams, are the basement of the SEC. Arch Manning, before the season started, was the Heisman favorite. Texas was ranked, I believe, the number 2 team in the country, or the number 1 team in the country. Forgive me, I don't remember right at this very second. But the whole reason for them facing OSU in week 1 was to showcase that as like a premier game in college football. Texas had these lofty expectations, and they came nowhere close to meeting them. Now, like I said, they have some impressive wins. They have wins against Oklahoma and against Texas A&M, the 7 and the 8 seeds respectively. But once again, it's too inconsistent for me. You lose to Florida, who's been a mess, and you face Mississippi State and Kentucky, and it takes you till overtime to beat them. And this right here is just a little bit of bias on my end, but you win against UTEP, University of Texas El Paso, 27-10. That right there should have been a statement victory. That 17 points obviously is not a close quote unquote win. That's obviously a win that is comfortable. But you see teams the level of Texas defeating teams the level of UTEP 50-0, 50-10, 60-70, or 60-17, my apologies. You see that type of stuff happening all the time. And in this case, I also think that 17-point win against UTEP should be held against Texas, especially since Arch Manning did not play great in that game. I think that there was a lot of things working against Texas. Ultimately, the committee did, in this case, once again, make the right decision in quote-unquote snubbing Texas. But for people who genuinely believe that Texas had earned their right to be in that game, I disagree. Once again, they were 9-3, and Vanderbilt was 10-2. And once again, yes, Vanderbilt had a loss to Texas in the head-to-head victory, but the better overall record goes to Vanderbilt. I don't understand how a lot more people aren't upset and aren't up in arms about Vanderbilt not making it in, because by my estimation, and as far as I'm concerned, they were one of the most impressive teams in the SEC this year. And I think that Alabama, Texas, a lot of teams kind of just have that name brand, that sexy brand name, brand exposure that, a lot of people who are listening will understand the brand exposure struggle. But I think Vanderbilt really got snubbed here. And that's a team I would be more up in arms about if I was the committee, if I was the fan bases, and if I was the national media. But of course, it's Vanderbilt. Not a lot of people want to talk about them. And they're Vandy. They'll get over it. Well, guess what? They got the number 1 quarterback recruit in the country. I anticipate that they will be back and be back with a vengeance. And I really hope that next year this isn't just kind of a lightning in the bottle situation. I really hope that Vanderbilt is able to sustain their success and become a very respectable program for years to come, and ones that's actually able to make the college football playoffs next year. So, again, I don't really have, when it comes to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, I don't really have 1 through 8 any problems there. I think that they accurately kind of determined what teams go through those seeds. I really think that, okay, you put those all in the right spots. Okay, no arguments there. That's fine. I want to get into my big gripe here. I think that, first of all, the ACC needs to be suspended from college football eligibility next season for the way that they had to set up their conference championship. The way that Miami was not put in the ACC championship game, and they left it to Virginia versus Duke, and then they back themselves into a corner in a scenario where if Duke won, which is what ended up happening, and now they're ACC champions for the first time since 1989, they could not, or possibly, very well may not have gotten representation in the ACC. Now they're lucky that they got Miami. They got Miami in there, but you're mean to tell me that you couldn't find a way to get Miami in the ACC championship game, and you had to resort to a 7-5 Duke facing Virginia. And yes, Virginia, by all intents and purposes, should have won that game. So a lot of people can point the finger at Virginia there, and I understand that. But you're telling me that you could not find a way to get your best team, your best representation into your conference championship game. Now, there were a lot of words in the national media saying we need to cancel the conference championships, and I disagree with that. I think that there is a level of competition that should be expected throughout college football, and I think that the conference championships are a great way to represent that. Not only do you have the national championship to fight for, but there are other championships in there that a lot of teams that don't necessarily have those hopes should be proud of and should kind of aspire to get. I get the competitive spirit. I get that you always want to have the national championship in mind, but you got to be realistic. Like a lot of these teams they're obviously going to fight for it, do the best that they can, but a lot of these teams aren't going to have that kind of goal that's realistic for them. And in my opinion, what the ACC should do, or what the NCAA should do, should take the ACC, and I really think that they should just suspend them from any playoff eligibility. I don't care if Clemson goes 12-0 next year. I don't care if they find the second coming of Trevor Lawrence next year. I don't care. I don't care if they get all their alumni back. I do not care. I really believe for their incompetence, and make no mistake about it, it is incompetence that they were not able to find a formula to get Miami in the ACC championship game. I think that the ACC needs to be suspended from playoff eligibility next season to truly teach them that they need to wisen up. And if they don't do it, then guess what? I'm going to sound crazy here and like a conspiracy theorist. I don't want to lose credibility. I truly believe that if the ACC doesn't face some sort of punishment, I know what I'm saying is a little bit extreme, I truly do believe that this is going to be a way to convince people to go to a more selection-based formula where people get automatic qualifiers, in the SEC and the Big Ten will automatically have 8 teams in a 16-team playoff format, which I disagree with. I do not think that college football playoffs, as of right now, needs another expansion after only 2 years of the current 12-team format, which I think is very good, very popular, and kind of the perfect amount. No, I don't think the answer to a better college football playoffs is more teams and a completely reworked system. People just need to have common sense. That's all it needs to be. People need to have common sense. People need to find a way to get the best teams in there. And I understand that there's gray area. I don't completely hate the committee, but if you're telling me the alternative is going to be a selection-based model where the bigger your conference, you have more automatic qualifiers and you get in, then no. I don't want half the field of college football playoffs teams to be overpopulated with the SEC and the Big Ten. That to me is boring. That doesn't leave a lot of room for parity. And I get it. Look, you have to find a way to, get a lot of your big guns in there, but there should be a mix in there. And what incentive does that add for the teams like Tulane, for the teams like James Madison, who get in? Look, again, no disrespect. Like, I don't really think they have a snowball's chance in hell to win those games, but they have something they can always talk about now. And for these small programs, that is huge. That is huge for them, and I'm really proud of them, really happy. So, kind of to immediately contradict what I just said, I'm going to talk about the biggest omission and what has kind of been the highlight of this whole entire thing, and that is Notre Dame being omitted from the college football playoffs. And look, I told you last episode, I am a Notre Dame fan as well, obviously as a Wisconsin fan, but I am a Notre Dame fan as well. I really enjoy their heritage. I enjoy the tradition. I enjoy the uniforms. I just enjoy the atmosphere overall. I really enjoy just kind of their overall presentation of a football team, and I like the way that they play the game. I don't know have any way to put it. I just find Notre Dame to be an aesthetically pleasing football team. And I went on this show last week and I said, if it comes down to Miami versus Notre Dame, the head to head matchup has to matter. It absolutely has to matter. And I completely understand why you would have Miami over Notre Dame in a selection based or in the committee based thing like this. I understand it. I support it. I don't necessarily like it, but I understand it, and you have to keep the integrity of the head to head matchups. But you're telling me that James Madison University has a better chance and is more deserving than Notre Dame? It's a genuine question. I'm genuinely asking. Again, I do not want to discredit James Madison. They should not be apologizing for anything. And I'm very happy. I'm very proud of them. You know, it's a great, great moment for them that they're always going to be able to have. But you're telling me that you had to get James Madison in. The bigger priority for the committee was to get James Madison University in over the University of Notre Dame. You are looking at me with a straight face. I'm talking to the committee. You are looking at me with a straight face and saying that is what you went to bed with or what you woke up with this morning. That was the decision you made, and you're telling me that with the utmost bass in your voice and conviction. I do not believe you. I do not believe you. I understand, again, Miami had to be ranked ahead of Notre Dame. But I think from the committee, this is them sending a message trying to tell Notre Dame that they have to join a conference. Now, I understand, and I said this in my last episode, that when it comes to making these decisions and they want to look at the conference records, that's not something the committee is going to be able to work off of, obviously because Notre Dame is not in a conference. So I understand how that works against them. But at the end of the day, Notre Dame is their own team. They've gotten famous off of the way that they've operated and with the success that they've gotten from their operation. It's their choice to be an independent team. If they want to put themselves, which let's face it, is what the disadvantage is, if they want to put themselves in that disadvantaged position, that is their choice. Why is the committee, and this is just my opinion, but why is the committee forcing them, or at least trying to force them, to join a conference by sending this message that they're not going to make the playoffs when it comes down to it? This, in my opinion, is the committee sticking it to Notre Dame. And it really is. Like I have no other way to put it. You cannot tell me that James Madison University is more deserving and has a greater chance of achieving success in this college football playoffs than Notre Dame. You can't tell me that. And imagine what the first round matchup would have been. Even if you rank Tulane ahead of them, that's fine. If you want to put Notre Dame at 12, that's fine. Can you imagine how good and intriguing of a matchup Oregon versus Notre Dame would have been in round 1? Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? I can. And look, the game could have gone either way. I'm not saying that Notre Dame was guaranteed to win that game because they're most certainly not. Oregon's one of the best teams in the country for a reason. They're so well coached and they have tremendous talent. But I think that would have been such a showcase game and a great game to showcase your sport. I think Notre Dame got robbed. I don't understand it. I don't know what exactly is going on here. And I understand that this little promise that they've made, I get that it's kind of this thing where now next year they're definitely going to be guaranteed to make the playoffs if they get in this position again. But I don't understand it. And look, Notre Dame, I'm not going to lie to you, they did kind of take their ball and they went home. That's exactly what they did. And I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that sentiment because when you play in the bowl games, the whole point of it is to get your true freshmen, the guys who are going to be replacing the seniors. That's the whole kind of point of that, to kind of get those guys ready to go, and kind of evaluate the future of your team. So I do not agree with, once again, Notre Dame putting themselves at a disadvantage and kind of a petty way to make some sort of statement, because I really don't think that college football selection, especially the committee, is going to think twice about what they did, as obviously they didn't, or else they would be in the playoffs. So again, I don't agree with Notre Dame's actions of taking their ball and going home, But there is no question about it that Notre Dame got robbed. Notre Dame did get robbed. And there's no other way to put it, in my opinion. Like, a lot of people may disagree. They may be like, oh, well, don't lose the 2 games. Okay, it was the beginning of the season. And guess what? There is a 9-3 team in Alabama in the playoffs. They lost their conference championship game, and they have an advantage over BYU and Notre Dame, two teams that are 10-2. They got that luxury, and Notre Dame and BYU don't. This is the inconsistency of the committee that frustrates me. And once again, I believe it is being done on purpose so the NCAA can move into a format where they do selection based modeling and nobody will think twice about it because they're so angry and disgusted with the committee. I believe that these people are smart, but I believe they're being influenced to make bad choices on purpose. That way, the NCAA eventually can get what they want. And in my opinion, that's sickening. That's sickening. And you may roll your eyes, you may laugh as one of the listeners here, but I really do believe that's what's happening because a lot of proposals from the Big Ten, from the SEC, are coming that way where they want 4 teams automatically in. And I think this is just an excuse from the NCAA to give these conferences what they want. And honestly, I would love to have a guest on here to talk about it because it fires me up to no end. And it's 1:20 in the morning. I really should be going to bed and getting some sleep and rest about this and not letting my blood pressure get this high. But you know what? I can't help it. I really can't. Excuse me. But yes, that is what I'm going to, or that is what we have talked about today. I hope that a lot of this was able to be made sensical. I do understand that, trying to explain the committee and trying to make sense of what the committee does, really, it's kind of like talking to a brick wall. But I really do hope that I did the best that I could with the time that I have with you today. Once again, I appreciate everybody listening. I appreciate all of your support to Ginormous. And there is going to be plenty of more content to come in the future, and this train's going to keep on rolling, baby. This has been Ginormous.